With College Football 27 only a week or so away, I took the time to compile all the new info on recruiting, NIL, and Dynasty points to give you all the basic tools and how you can succeed in your very first dynasties so you don't get to the end of year one and lose half your roster to the portal and feel like you need to restart since you spent all your points on facility upgrades. Of course, we already know NIL is the keynote for recruiting, and Dynasty points are the new big feature we will have to manage this year, but how does that really change recruiting from year to year for you? After playing the beta and reviewing the release footage from EA and other creators, I have found 5 distinct things you will need to manage almost perfectly if you want to succeed at your schools and not get fired. So be sure to save this video to be able to look back at it after you get the game in July. Also be sure to subscribe as I will give a full in-depth recruiting guide a few days after launch that will lay out the best blueprint for a realistic but effective method to manage IL and recruiting each year. With NIL being wrapped up in Dynasty points and not in its own standalone point pool, you will now have to manage paying coaches and choosing to upgrade facilities alongside it, both of which are vital to your success every season. The Dynasty Blueprint breakdown shows the general split of what the CPU thinks you should spend on each throughout the year, which is nice as it gives you a baseline to start from. But year ones for most schools will be a choice between saving points for coaching upgrades or NIL spend on recruits, as facilities are not a necessity in most cases, especially for those mid to low major programs. The first tip is for the best breakdown in my opinion, and that is to start your rebuild by completely ignoring any supporting staff upgrades as well as any facility upgrades or equipment boosts. These have their place later in the rebuild, but most of these effects are not significant enough when you are pinching pennies at the start. 3 possible exceptions to this are the abilities that affect the longevity of facilities, as these require repairs each year. This may save you some NIL each season. Another is any that reduce NIL expectations, but this is for programs that are anticipating offer over certain amounts of NIL. The breakdown is on screen. This may also change if the boost lasts more than 1 year, but I believe they are currently needed to be purchased every season, but either way, the break-even point stays the same. And lastly, any of the coaching cost reductions if you are specifically planning on hiring a coach at the end of the year, but this can be purchased towards the end of the season if you have leftover Dynasty points. Secondly, assuming you don't spend any Dynasty points on the aforementioned things, you can now plan to spend those on just coaches and players. For recruiting, EA kind of misled us with the fact that 3 stars would require NIL, but it looks like only around half do. So recruiting the other half of the 3 stars and below will be just exactly the same as last 2 years. I focus on getting the bulk of my players from there and scouting as many players as I could to see if there were any 3-star gems. If I did happen to find some gems, I would go way over the requested NIL offer to get the maximum or near maximum boost each week. If you are rebuilding a larger program and fighting for 4 or even 5 stars, do the same with the gems you find on those levels. During the beta, CPU teams would only offer the exact request of the players they were fighting for, so it's easy to get a larger boost in the CPUs, but this may have changed for the full launch. But before we get into the second half of the video, be sure to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date on all things College Football 27. We have a ton of things planned for release. And also be sure to head over to our last video, the last rebuild on College Football 26, as we're running a giveaway to give away a free copy of College Football 27. With that out of the way, let's get back into it. The third thing kind of works alongside the second, and that it revolves around controlling how much you pay players each season, especially at the start of their careers. I know I just mentioned earlier that overpaying on gems was the best strategy, and it is, but offering a 3-star gem more money than a 4-star just doesn't really make much sense. The benefit of gems is that in theory, they are players who play above the level they are, but you could get them at a discount. The reason you never want to overpay too much is it really hinders your ability to keep them year after year. Once you bring a player in on a specific NIL deal, that will become their new baseline. And after looking through some gameplay, I'll use Bordeaux's Washington State overview as an example. He had a player to start the rebuild whose NIL deal was 40 points. By the end of year 1, his new demand jumped to 65. Regardless of what they want to re-sign, it looks like the increase is a percentage rather than a fixed value. So if you offered him 80 instead of the original 40, he will likely request 130 points in year 2 instead of 105. And this compounds year after year, and eventually you'll get priced out of the player and you'll lose them to the transfer portal. The second and last thing to focus on will be after your first season, but you need to plan for it from the very start. With a new coaching carousel, you can offer any coach you want a contract, so getting recruiters and even elite recruiters will be easier than ever. With how intentional you need to be this year with Dynasty points as well as hours spent on recruits, you need to be able to identify more gems than ever, and the best way to do that is by scouting them faster. Even starting as a recruiter will get you an extra benefit, but weighing whether this is the best archetype to start with is waiting to be seen. As for saving for coordinators from the handful of pre-release contents we have had, I was able to get this list on screen. The Dynasty point cost looks to be a calculation of coach level, coach interest, and previous salary, as coaches from larger schools cost more, and lastly, whether they were recently fired or not. With this in mind, you can find elite recruiter coordinators around 80 to 100 points per season, so plan accordingly and maybe save some more if you had a really bad year. The last big focus area you will need to look at are the contract goals each athletic director gives you. These will vary on difficulty and task, but the most routine ones I saw were placements in certain amount of seasons and rivalry game wins. Winning rivalry games has always been important for recruiting, but this season there are added benefits of keeping your job and the dynasty point increase you will get after you accomplish this. Since this is a one-time checkpoint, you will be able to repeat this each and every season, and it routinely offers 200 plus dynasty points for each time you accomplish it. That is in the range of 2 to 3 solids 3 stars, or even an extra 4-star for some schools, which can be a huge boost for a really small program. But with that, those are my 5 most impactful things you will need to focus on to start your rebuilds next week. I'm sure this will change slightly as the game comes out, but from what I've heard, most of the large things like NIL and ability costs have remained the same. I appreciate you tuning in, I hope you enjoyed, and as always, I'll catch you all in the next one.